Chomsky speak when I was going to McGill, and he said lots of things that were amazing. But one of the things that he said was, if you really want the true story about anything that happens in the world, you can't just read one story. You have to read 10, and then it's only when you actually read all these different perspectives that you actually can start making your own opinion about what the actual truth is about something, right? And that, when I was going to university, was like it was a huge eye opener.
It was a big one for me too. Like I went to McGill as well, and I was an English lit
I didn't know
guy.
that.
Yeah, and one of the big things in a lot of the 20th century literature that I study, one of the big concepts that has always resonated with me coming into the media is this concept of the multiplicity of truth, which
Right.
is you don't get the truth unless you hear all points of view. It's the sum of all the points of view
That's the actual
the real
truth.
truth.
Yeah.
Not just, the winner writes history. That's not accurate, right?
Yeah.
And somebody recently pointed out to as kind of this argument, well, it just means that the onus shifts from the journalists to the audience to be able to go and find all those different points of view themselves. I don't think most people are going to do that. And I don't mean to be pessimistic, but I really don't think people are
People are lazy,
that.
right?
Well,
so
they don't necessarily want to challenge their own opinions either.
Yeah, that's true.
Some will.
But there's an opportunity for new filters now.
Yeah.
Right? Again, so because we're going to have, if you want to learn about any story, you're going to have thousands of people blogging about that one specific story. If you have a filter, a person that actually goes through or a group of people that filter down all that noise into something
what
that
it really means.
into something that's valuable for you, just like what Radio 3 does with indie music. I think there are starting to be some people like that are becoming those aggregates, and I think it's going to be huge. I think that's we started with these portals that were just like everything for everyone, and they're just like doorways into universes. But now I think we're getting people that are like taking content. The word that comes up a lot is curating, right?
Yeah.
You hear that a lot. We have to remember that the internet's not even a teenager yet.
Yeah.
So I mean, those business models are. Oh.
Sorry.
Those business models people are still, thank God, they're still really experimenting a lot and trying a lot of things, because the internet's, as far as publishing mediums go, is fairly cheap.
Yeah.
So you could try a lot of different things, and some stuff works and some stuff will not.
And it's interesting. There's still, I see this as like one of those things where there's a bunch of people in traditional media who are still living exclusively in traditional media, and there's a bunch of people who are growing up purely in a new media environment and don't have a lot of experience in the traditional side. The people who can bridge the gap between those two are going to be the people who are worth their weight in gold, because both sides have an enormous amount to offer, and the new media side is really about connecting to others, being able to spread content, create networks, empower communities, do a lot of things that are really foreign to traditional media. And I hope this doesn't sound horribly arrogant to say this, but I think traditional media, like you have trained journalists, you have trained storytellers, you have people who are spent their whole lives learning crafts around music recording or cinematography, like a lot of amazing skill sets that you can't just do in your basement.
Yeah.
And whether that's a big thing, like a big show, like Lost or The Border or whatever it is, you can't make that in your basement. And
since you say that now, people are going to be going out and making Lost in their basement. But sorry, I took you off track.
And even to a certain extent, the core skills, even at a less expensive budget level, just people who live and breathe as their profession, how to tell a great story or how to dig up, news and some of those core
investigators,
or just storytelling from an entertainment point of view. There's a difference if you've
craft.
been doing it for 10 or 20 years versus somebody just growing up who's opening up iMovie. There will be the people who can bridge the two of those. I think are going to be very successful.
Yeah.
And I guess, at least from a traditional media point of view, that's where the meritocracy comes in. I think is if you can tell the great stories and make the great content and target people very effectively, but also be really open with it and share it and make it available and interact with people and create relationships and give them the power to help you, by either contributing to it or sharing it with their networks. Those are the ones I think that are going to take off.
Yeah. Have you, by chance, read Chips and Pop? Do you know that book?
I have not, no.
Oh, there's a Canadian book called Chips and Pop that it sounds like you'd read it because it's it talks about, well, actually these three people in Toronto were hired by, I think it was Royal Bank, RBC, to find out why the Gen Xers were not putting money into the bank. And they did like 4 or 5 years of research, and they found all these things. They were Gen Xers themselves.
Yeah.
And they found all these things about, they start the book by saying, we don't like this Gen Xers term anyway. We're called the Nexus generation, as in the bridge between the boomers and the new generation that basically live and breathe the internet.
Yeah.
And how... Basically, the book, to me, I thought it was an amazing book. Next Christmas,
have to go pick it up. Yeah.
Next Christmas, I'm buying it for you, if you don't have it by then.
Yeah.
But I think you'll really like it, because I was reading this book going, there's all these things about me that, like, I'm kind of anti-authority, and there's all these reasons why there's people that are the Gen Xers, of Canadian Gen Xers specifically, why we have reservations about religion, because we saw things when we were growing up in the 80s that, like nasty Tammy Faye Bakers and things like that just made us think about, think twice about certain things. But it's a great book because it really makes you think about what our role, what Gen Xers' role is, and I would consider you're a Gen Xer, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, it's exactly what you said. Like we have a role in bridging this huge part of the population, the boomers, with this generation that they don't understand at all.
Like you were saying earlier, you only have a certain amount of disposable time. So, traditional media is still thinking, and rightly so, because that's where their business model is primetime entertainment is a huge driver, or certain types of news programming are huge revenue drivers, or music, or on radio, it's music is still a huge driver for that. We're kind of competing against lolcats. Like that's also entertainment.
Yeah.
And blogs are also entertainment. And that's part of that's part of your disposable time, is consuming all these different forms of things. And I think the people who can bridge the gap are the ones who can understand the value of some of this sort of stuff that I think is instantly dismissed by a lot of traditional media as being irrelevant, or they don't take the time to go in and actually participate on, I guess Twitter, a lot of people are diving into that, but when something new comes up, it almost has to wait until it reaches a huge tipping point before a lot of people will jump in to it.
Yeah.
Where you need people who are, I guess, conversant in traditional, but also who are willing to go in and live in a lot of these digital spaces and take the time to understand why they're important.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously an entire generation that is entirely where they're living,
and that's
and
sad too.
Totally, and it is, and totally rightfully.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was great.
Yeah. It was
Thanks
good.
so much, Steve.
Thank you. Nice talking with you.
Yeah, it's good to see
you
you
again.
All right.
Yeah. Okay.